I'm not sure if they'll cook like this, but I'll see. And by God, they cook perfectly that way. Cue the mic. I'm Darren Worth.
And I'm Randy Twyford, and obviously Darren is coming to us live from an airport.
I don't hear an airport. I don't have any planes going over the top of me.
It sounded like it.
That's me.
Oh.
That's me.
Was it?
Oh,
I
that
live
was
next to an airport.
Holy shit.
Now,
well, you never tell me anything. Never tell me a fucking thing.
Now I've got an airplane going over me.
No, I live next to an airport, Randy.
Well, if it's past the time, but the helicopters are starting to fly out of here now. It sounds like, we're at a military base around here. We've got like 8 helicopters that base out of just north of home here a little bit for spraying corn. So last night I heard the birds were coming back to the nest, so. Just a side note.
Are you going to introduce yourself?
Randy? I don't know. Am I, Randy?
Randy?
What?
We start by introducing ourselves.
I introduced myself. I said, I'm the amazing Randy Twyford, broadcasting from the heliport.
Oh, okay.
And I'm Emma Derflinger, and this is episode 63.
Emma, your light is wonderful today.
Is it? I got a lot of things going on right now.
It's glistening. It's glistening.
You're glistening today, Emma.
I think that's just my pale skin in the sun. But thank you.
I'm coming to you live from the patio of the Meat Maven Anella Kelso in Boise, Idaho.
What are you doing out there?
It's the only place that I could even find remotely quiet in this house.
It's all right.
So, what am I doing out here, Randy?
Yeah, what are you doing out there?
Tell us.
Well, about 4 or 5 months ago, Anella called us, Jeff from Shiggin and Grin and I, and said, hey, we've got a contest.
Time out. Tell people who Anella is, who she really is.
Oh, so Anella is our contact at Snake River Farms, which is a Wagyu beef farm, Wagyu beef provider. They've been a sponsor of mine on the barbecue circuit for many, many, many years. So I've done a lot of promotional stuff for them, a lot of social media for them over the years. And so we've traveled a lot around the country doing barbecue things. And she called and said, hey, we have our first ever sanctioned barbecue contest in Idaho. We want you, she goes, I'd like you and Jeff to come out and cook together in this barbecue contest. So I said, okay, sounds like fun. So we booked our tickets out and, never thought much about it. We'll take care of the details later. Well, we got about a month ago and it's getting closer. And I said, this is the only state championship in Idaho, the first ever state championship in Idaho. And I said, which being the only state championship means it's an automatic qualifier to the Jack Daniels World Championship. So I said, instead of us cooking together, why don't we split up and cook separately under our own team names and add another team? And she's like, okay, that's fine. We can do that. So she goes, but I'm not sure I can get you enough equipment. And I said, don't worry about it. I'll just find me one gateway drum, and then Jeff can have the rest of the equipment because he likes to cook on Traegers, and we knew we weren't going to find Jambos out here. So, yeah, I said, you find Jeff whatever he wants, and I'll just cook on a drum. And which she did. So she found Jeff a couple Traegers. She actually found me 2 or 3 drums. So we flew out. I really had no business coming out because this other restaurant's really heating up and everything's getting put back together now. But I flew out. Sherry came with me, actually. And we flew out on, what day was it? Must have been Wednesday night we got out and flew out and rented a U-Haul. And we loaded up Thursday morning, all this stuff up in Boise, and then we drove to Twin Falls, Idaho, which is about 2 hours away, to Anella's brother, and he had acquired some barbecue stuff for us and a generator and all kinds of good stuff. And we loaded the rest of that stuff up in Twin Falls. And then we went another couple hours further east over to Blackfoot, Idaho, which is on the Indian reservation, over clear into eastern Idaho, and set up at an airport and cooked the barbecue contest at an airport. Brand new contest. Just a great venue.
Huh.
Windy. We we on the way over we had 50-mile-an-hour winds in the U-Haul,
Holy
but
shit.
luckily the 50-mile-an-hour winds were right straight behind us, so it blew us all the
Oh.
way to Blackfoot,
Oh, okay.
which was
Good.
great.
Good.
And then Friday setting up, it was very, very windy, and so we had a camper rented out there on site too, and so we kind of got a corner where we had to change the position of the camper to block the wind, and then we got the U-Haul set up, so we kind of had a little cubby hole in the corner trying to protect us from the wind. And it was a little chilly. It was, I don't know, it was 70 degrees, but it was still, with the wind, it was a little chilly. But boy, when it came to Saturday, the wind died down, and it
Oh,
some
good.
would say it
Nice.
got hot, but it was 92, 93 degrees, and we were on the pavement. But of course, we're in the middle of the desert, so there was no humidity at all. So it was beautiful to us Iowans in the middle of the
Yeah.
summer. Um, Absolutely beautiful. So had a good time. Even though I had multiple cans, I kind of challenged myself to. I wanted to try it again. We did it in Florida, or I did it in Florida earlier in the year, where I cooked all four meats on one can, one gateway drum, and the timeline worked out pretty well. I was a little concerned because instead of being at sea level where things cook really quick, this time we were at about 4,500 foot elevation, which is double what we normally cook at. So I knew things were going to cook slower. So I was a little concerned about that, on how I was going to position meat, and how could I expect to have three meats on one drum at the same time.
Did you see that higher elevation did have an effect on how you were cooking? Are the cook
It
times
definitely
and
did
stuff?
have it definitely did have an
How
effect
much did
on
it add
that.
to the time, do you think? I'm curious.
I would on average half hour to 45 minutes.
That long?
Ha- yeah, oh yeah, half hour to
Wow.
45 minutes. Now, so before the cook, one of the fun things about the contest was they invited the public out to do a, not a People's Choice, but they had a kids queue and stuff, and it was Blackfoot Days or some festival associated with it, and so they invited the public out. Well, 12 of the teams, not us, but 12 of the teams had said in their application that they would vend food. And the organizer was a really great guy, and they got to keep 100% of their profits. And when it came time to set up, only two of them raised their hands and said that they were vending.
Holy
And
shit.
we're like, holy crap. He's going to invite all this public out. Public's coming out to this first year event, and they're not going to have any food for the public. So I was sitting there, and this is 4 o'clock. It started. The public starts at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's 4 o'clock, and we're sitting in there in the lawn chair. And I look at Anel, and I'm like, he's not going to have enough food for the public. And Anella's like, well, I sent in 60 pounds of ground beef of Wagyu burger for the kids queue, and I think they only used like 20 or 30 pounds of it. And so I said, well, ask the organizer, because if we could get a hold of that ground beef, and somebody's got to have a Blackstone over here, we could go to the store and buy some buns and some onions and cheese, and we could just make Wagyu smash burgers. Like we didn't have anything else to do
Right.
except cook a barbecue contest. So that's exactly what we did. So the organizer finally about 4:30 brought it, and Anella immediately took off to Walmart and went and got buns and some burger sauce, and got some dehydrated onions, and I rehydrated them in water real quick, and got us a big old block of cheese. and some aluminum foil to wrap our smash burgers in. And then the organizer shows up at 4:30. Said, "Man, I appreciate you guys doing this for me." And shows up with 30 pounds of frozen solid pounds of
Oh
ground
shit!
beef. And I'm like, So Jeff had fired up his Traegers trying to just get them clean. He had just cleaned them out and he had them fired up. And they're like, "What are we doing?" I said, "Hey, grab some pans. Let's get some water in them. Let's get the." So we put some water and we put the ground beef in the water. And then we had a sink inside an airport hangar. And so we went and ran hot water and we started putting ground beef everywhere, trying to get it thawed out. And so about 5:15, we were smashing burgers. Now we were smashing halfway frozen burgers. So
Right.
every time, and we borrowed a brand new black spoon from the guys down the street, and we borrowed propane from another guy, and we didn't have anything to smash these things with. So I went to the organizer and I said, "You got any sort of spatula that we could smash these burgers with?" And he laughs and he goes, "Our trophies are spatulas." I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "And I made a special one for Anella because she's helped me so much with this contest. Do you promise to clean it up and give it back to me?" I'm like, "Yeah." So he brought us Anella's plaque, thank you plaque, which was a big old Traeger smash burger. And so Drew and Chelsea Davis from Razor Racks and Sherry and I and Anella, Jeff he wandered off. But we sat there and smashed 120 double smash burgers
Holy
and sold them
Letus.
for $5 a piece, $10 for two. We sold them to the public. We just had a big old line, sold them to the public, and then we just gave all the cash. We couldn't do credit card or anything. We didn't have a way to do it, so we just sold it for cash, and we gave all the money back to the organizer, and it went to a scholarship fund. So we funded an entire scholarship for the local thing. So yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
And it was a couple hour deal. We weren't hoping to get maybe that greasy on a Friday night, but we had a lot of fun doing it. It was
good.
It was
Sounds
an
like
impromptu. It was an impromptu vending. And
That's pretty
it
cool.
all worked out in the end. Philip Breeden from LC's, he was there, and so he sponsored the rub. I said, "Hey, Philip, I need some rub for some burgers," because he has his own line of seasonings. He goes, "Oh, let me make you up some." So he just starts pouring bottles, hands it to me, and off we go. So we just had a grand old time. Cooking burgers, and we had a whole system down, making these smash burgers. I mean, they were good. We had one left. I ate it. That's the only thing I had all day long to eat. So, it was good. Got all greasy before I went to bed, but back to the cook. Yeah. So I started early. I thought I better get up at 4:00 in the morning and start the pit. So I cooked a full brisket or a brisket flat. I cooked 4 pork collars. When I saw the grill, I cut them kind of a lot smaller. They weren't just quite money muscles, but they were a little bit bigger. I cooked 4 of those. I cooked 3 racks of ribs, and I cooked 12 pieces of chicken. So, and everybody was like, "How did you do this?" I'm like, "Well, it's really easy." And I cooked a 2-pan method. So I had a smaller than a half pan over the so I had my charcoal on the bottom, and I had a second rack down there, and I had two pans, and they were smaller. They're about not quite half the size of a foil pan, maybe half the size of a foil pan, one on each side. And I cooked a brisket on one side, and I cooked 4 of these small pork collars on the other side, and I cooked them over the pan.
over
most
the
time
pan. That's what I was getting ready to ask you.
Yeah, most of the time a can cooker would spin and spend some time over the coals, making it taste like canned food, and back. Well, I did that I saved a chunk of my brisket and a chunk of my pork I just took an end of my brisket and I threw it directly over the fire and let it drip down over the coals and gave me that flavor for my brisket. And then when I put my pork on, I had a little pork steak with some fat in it, and I put it over the coals and let that drip down and give me the flavor for my pork.
I'll be damned.
And so, and when I got done smoking, I just took those pieces off, threw it away, and I should have ate the pork steak actually, but it actually looked pretty good. Um, so I was a little worried about the night before. I was a little worried about where I was going to put my ribs because you got one side. Imagine a 22-inch Weber grill or this can. Where am I going to put these racks of ribs? I was only going to be able to cook 2 racks of ribs, but I had brought 3. And so we started looking at this Weber grate. And have you ever seen the Weber grate that has the flip ups on them where you can add more charcoal during your
Yeah,
cook?
yeah, most definitely.
Right. So one of the guys that had loaned us a can, one of the grates had the flip ups on it. And we
Right.
started looking at that saying, what if we took them flip ups and just took a pair of pliers and pried those apart and took those flip up parts off, and
Uh
then we
huh.
could lean that against the handle. That would be my rib rack. And
Oh,
so
okay.
we took 2 of those, and that was my rib rack on each
On both
side.
sides.
But
Yeah.
luckily, I had wrapped my pork and my brisket was wrapped. I was able to get my pork came off right before my ribs. I wanted to put my ribs on at 8 o'clock, and I had sent. And I don't know much about can cooking. It's only the second time. This was only the second time I've ever cooked on a can. Once was in Florida, and so I called or I sent a message to my buddy Kyle Johnson. I said, "Hey, what's the latest that I can put ribs on a can?" And he said, "Boy, I wouldn't go any later than 8:30." But that's in Iowa. That's not elevation time. And
Right,
I'm like,
right. That's what I was wondering.
we're gonna be we're gonna be pushing it here. So I'm like, I'm gonna pick 8:15 as my time. But I knew in order to get them to cook quicker, I was gonna need less rib. So I went to the table and I cut 2 bones off each end of my rib. So I only cooked six bone racks because I needed less weight. Because I knew if I had less weight, they'd cook faster.
Right.
And so I kept all 3, and my pork came off at about 8:14. And
Wow.
so when my pork came off, threw it off the cooker, I was able to stand up my 2 racks of ribs, and I was able to I moved my brisket down towards the center, and I was able to put the 3rd rack of ribs on. And so everything was going good. My ribs were cooking. I was having to rotate them because that one on the end was getting a little hot. So I was flipping them over and rotating them, and my brisket was still on. It was a full size brisket flat. I really didn't trim it down much. So it was taking quite a while to get done. I normally cook a brisket flat in 4 hours, and it took damn near 5.5 hours to get done.
I'll be damned.
Um, and so I got my ribs and they were wrapped, but they weren't getting done before the time I had to get my chicken put on. And I'm like, I'm going to have to play Jenga with my ribs. So I started kind of Jenga stacking my ribs on top of the brisket and just all around trying to make it happen. And then they started leaking a little bit down into the fire and started
Oh boy.
smoking. So finally, I just grabbed a little small Weber pan because I had small racks of ribs, and I stacked them 3 high in the pan on top of each other. I'm like, I'm not sure if they'll cook like this, but I'll see. And by God, they cook perfectly that way.
I'll be damned.
And I was able to. I had 12 pieces of chicken, and I was able to kind of maneuver the chicken. I had to put it right on the grate all the way around. I had chicken everywhere on that damn grill, and some of it was over the fire and some of it was over the pan. And when I first opened the lid after about 15 minutes, I had about 3 pieces of chicken that the skin, I had to cook chicken legs too. Normally I was cooking chicken thighs, but before I flew out on Tuesday, I went to my supplier Tuesday afternoon to get my chicken. And he's like, dude, they shorted me the thighs. And I'm like, no big deal. I guess I'll cook legs this week. And the last time I'd cooked legs was in Florida when I won chicken on the can.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, no big deal. Well, out of my 12 pieces now, I mean, 3 pieces over the fire, the skin just snapped all the way back after 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, those 3 are out. So I'm down to 9. So now I'm trying to get everything over the pans and maneuver it. But, I was able to get everything. And, then I've got my ribs done, which that was the biggest challenge because I don't know the tenderness of a rib. I know a tenderness of a rib on a Jambo, but I don't know the tenderness of a rib on a can because when those guys are can cooking, they take those ribs off at 10:30 in the morning. So I think they kind of purposely way overcook that rib because they tighten up on them.
Sure. Sure.
And so I don't know how that works. I don't know how that feels. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to throw these in the Cambro and just see what happens. And I'm just going to monitor all this stuff as time goes along. So I got the ribs in there and I got my chicken wrapped in foil and I got my brisket and my chicken on. Finally, I get my brisket tender enough because, at higher elevation, a lot of people, Jeff over there, he's struggling. He's like, my brisket's not getting done. It's not getting done. It won't go over 204 degrees. And I said, Jeff, I hate to tell you this, but it's never going to go above 204 degrees because if you would have looked, the first thing you do when you elevation cook, and for people who have never cooked elevation is if anytime you're cooking above sea level, you go to the internet and you say, what's the boiling point of water at that elevation? It will tell you. And your
Really
meat will never go above that temperature, right? So,
interesting.
and so the boiling point was 204.1, right?
Mm-hmm.
At Blackfoot, Idaho, the boiling point of water was 204.1. I knew going in that my meat was never going to go above 204.1. Now, that doesn't mean it was going to be tender at 204.1. That just means the temperature wasn't going to go above 204.1. So my
Right.
brisket was going to go to 204.1 and go into a permanent stall. So then it became a game of feel, right? It became a true
That's interesting.
barbecue feel, right?
Right.
And so I learned that game a long, long time ago out in Arizona in the mountains. I couldn't get my brisket done,
Mm-hmm.
And the guys, I finally got it done. I scored in brisket that day. And I'm sitting in awards and one of the locals goes, well, Darren, the boiling point of water is 200 degrees here. And I'm like, because you're just creating steam within this meat, right? So it never goes above it. And Jeff's like, but my pork says it's at 206. And I said, yeah. You know what that means? And he says, what? And I said, it means your thermometer's off 2 degrees, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so we were able to all get, we got it done. I got finally got my brisket off. It was, it felt really decent. I got the chicken came off. It was time. It came off 15 minutes early. And then I started thinking about this pork. I better check on this pork. And I went to check my pork, and I'm like, gosh, this feels really tight. And this is before chicken turned in. So I'm
Okay.
like, I'm going to put this back on the cooker. So I put the pork back on the cooker. But then, I put it back on for like 15 minutes, but then I had to put my chicken back on the cooker. So I'm taking the pork, and I said, hey, Sherry, grab me some foil. So I had it all in a pan. So I'm putting the pan back on top of the cooker, trying to keep it hot, covered in foil, while I'm putting sauce on my chicken. And then as soon as I take the sauce off, she's putting the pork back on the cooker. And then we're in the U-Haul, turning our chicken box while we got the pork back on the cooker. And then we're doing the ribs. We're doing the same thing. So I'm jockeying all these meats, trying to get them back so that at turn-in time, they're back to the tenderness that I want them to be.
Right.
Because I had no clue what the tenderness should be when they came off, because I didn't know what that should be in the first place, let alone at altitude. So we played a real game of jockey. I worked those meats all morning long. I worked, chicken came off, chicken was tender, it was fine, it went in. The ribs, they went in for just a little bit. They were a little tight. They should have probably went in for a little bit longer. They were what I would call textbook KCBS. So you take a bite, and they had a little bit of chew to them, but they were fine. Pork, I probably put in a little too long. It almost got maybe a little too tender, but not too
Right.
bad. And brisket
Mm-hmm.
was absolutely perfect when I got it finished. So, if I would have been a normal cook, I think, and in that situation and just pulled stuff out of the Cambro and sliced it up and turned it to the judges, I would have got screwed so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But me just nervous about, I don't know how to run this thing and I don't know what the finish temperatures are going to be, and just making the moves of, hey, I'm going to put this back in and rework this tenderness and work it all the way to the end, I think paid off in the end. So yeah. So in the end, we ended up. I get a seventh place call in chicken, which was fine. I mean, I didn't think my chicken. It was. It was okay. It wasn't great. My ribs, I wasn't expecting a call. They were a little, like I said, they were textbook KCBS. They were not super tender by any means, but they were textbook. Good flavor according to Sherry, but not very good. My pork, I thought maybe was just a little over. I sauced the piss out of it because when you're in the desert, things dry out super quick.
Ah,
So you, as soon as you
okay,
slice something, it starts to dry out. There's no humidity at all.
sure.
So things start to fly out. And so I'm like, Sherry's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, just all day long. She's like, if she said, what are you doing once, she said it 50 times to me. And I'm like, just go with me. Just go with me. And so I was just saucing and I was trying to make things look like a backyard box because I know these guys have never seen professional barbecue food, and I knew they'd be able to pick this away. And we get done turning our pork, and I'm like, I meant to make it look like a backyard pork, and then I got done. I'm like, oh shit, that looks nice, you know. But
Right.
we end up getting seventh in chicken, we got seventh in ribs, we got sixth in pork. Okay, and so at that point, we're the only one with 3 calls.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
but all the heavy hitters have 2 top 5 calls, right?
Mhm.
Oh,
And I'll take two top 5 calls over anything any single day,
sure.
right? And it comes down to brisket. And when I my brisket was very juicy. My brisket, once again, I put a lot of sauce on my brisket, but I never taste my brisket. And Anella happened to come in my trailer, and I said, "Here, taste my brisket." She goes, "Oh, yeah, that's fine." I'm like, she goes, "Take a bite." I took a bite, and there was absolutely zero flavor in my brisket. And I started thinking about my cook. And then I remembered I never put one single chunk of wood in that smoker all day long. I forgot
Oh,
I forgot to buy wood.
oh, god damn.
I didn't buy any wood. I didn't even think about putting wood for any meat in the cooker. I was just cooking over charcoal. Didn't even think about it. And I'm like, yep, this is not good, but there's not amount of flavor I can put in this. But it was, I mean, everything about that brisket was amazing, except for it just had no flavor. Nothing, nothing, zero flavor.
And the worst part of it
And,
is if you were at your trailer, your competition trailer, you'd have all your potions and lotions and stuff that you could
oh, yeah.
access to,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you're out there in the back of a U-Haul, so you don't have fiddly fuck of
Oh,
extra
I was
stuff.
working. Oh yeah, I was working out of a cardboard box that I put in a suitcase.
Right.
But that very that that very nice, flavorless brisket was good enough for second place brisket.
I'll be damned.
Um, and so I ended up being the only one with 4 calls. All those guys that got 2 calls, nobody got a call in brisket.
Huh.
They all love their brisket and got killed in brisket. But it was a 4 table game. There was, I mean, everybody hit the same tables, so there wasn't it was going to be a 5 table game. There was going to be 5 tables there because there was going to be 31 teams. One didn't show, and then 2 people didn't show up, so they took it down 28 teams. They said, "Hey, we're taking this to a 4 table game. Everybody's going to hit the same tables," and
Hmm.
I'm like, and they were newer judges, and they said, "Hey, there was a lot of old people in there," and I give, well, evidently old people like a lot of sauce on stuff, and they like no flavor, because to tell you the truth, it was the most mediocre barbecue I've ever turned in my life. It was just mediocre. It was mediocre. It was so mediocre, but those are the days that happen, and so right after turn-ins, a brand new team. Well, it wasn't even before. It was right before turn-ins. A new team walked up to me, and they said, "Wow, what do you think?" They said, "This is our first time," and I said, "Let me give you a few lessons before you turn in." I said, Really doesn't matter what it looks like. Try and keep it somewhat 90, but don't worry about meticulous. I said, hit your tenderness. Hit your tenderness, and don't don't make anything out of this world. Don't try and wow anybody with your flavor. Just try and make good barbecue. Don't try and just don't offend anybody is what I
Right.
said.
Politically
Don't offend
correct.
anybody with any flavor. Just make it politically correct, but make sure you hit your tenderness. Over beats under any day. Over tender beats under tender any day. Don't make it tight. Make sure it's good. But whatever. And they're like, wow, that's really great advice. Why don't they teach that in the judging class? And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what's wrong. And so I kind of followed my own advice there.
Right.
As I went through the day, I focused on tenderness. Even though if you talk to my wife, she wouldn't have, I mean, she's like, you're getting 25th today. I'm like, I don't care. I had fun. I mean, she was like Miss Negative all day long, to the point that I'm like, get out of the U-Haul. I don't need this negativity in my life. I'm just turning in shit. I'm just, don't drag me down. So anyway, it was fun. So when we get down to the end, I still don't like, I don't like 6th and 7th place calls when it comes to winning. But
Right.
Chris from Heavy Smoke's like, you got this. And I'm like, Chris, do me a favor. What? And I said, I'll bet you $20 I don't win. He goes, I'll take that bet. And I said, good, because if I don't win, at least I win $20. Right. So I bet him. I bet him $20 because I knew as soon as I got that second place brisket call, I had a pretty good chance at it. But I knew as soon as one of those top guys that was going to get a brisket call, they were going to beat me with 3 calls because they would have 3 top 5 calls. I knew I was good. I will take 3 top 5 calls over 4 calls any single day. Been beat by like 50 times, because most of the time in a bigger contest, if you go to a 50-team contest and you get 4 calls, 6th, 7th, you're going to get 5th every time. You got to have the bigger calls to win
in a bigger contest.
So anyway, yep. But anyway, so we punched our way to the Jack. Automatic invitation to the Jack Daniels.
Well, congratulations.
It was quite the experience. And so we drove back across the desert last night, and now we're getting ready to go unload the infamous U-Haul and put everything away and head out on a plane this afternoon and head back to Minnesota. And we're going to stay there for a couple of days at Teddy Camp. We got all the barbecue guys coming in for Teddy Camp. We're only going to stay for a couple of days, and then I got to go get back to work on this new restaurant.
Sounds like an adventure.
Yeah.
It's been an adventure. It's been a fun adventure.
Sounds like it. But, well, congrats on the win, D-Dub.
Yeah, congratulations.
You did it all in one can.
You just the one can, yeah. They kind of laughed at me as I was walking the stage to get the Grand Champion Award. I started singing, "Who can take a tin can?"
Jeez. Oh, good Lord.
Chris from Heavy Smoke says, "I'm getting shirts made."
Yeah.
Getting shirts made that says, "Just goat doing goat things."
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Did it all in one can.
One can.
Well,
yeah, that was a challenge. Now I got to figure out and that flip up thing of that Weber grates, that was the game changer, I think. In the whole
was it really?
And that will. Oh man, that gave me the room. That gave me the room. And you think about that. I mean, I still, looking back on that, I still cooked a full size, not a whole packer brisket, but I cooked a whole size brisket flat. I cooked 4 pork collars. I cooked 3 racks of ribs, and I cooked 12 chicken legs. Okay. I mean, that's a full contest. I would have cooked that same exact amount if I was cooking on my Jambo.
Really?
Yeah,
that's so interesting to think about.
It's just a matter of timing. And if I was cooking on the Jambo, I put the meat on at 5:00 on the can. If I was cooking on the Jambo, I would have put the meat on at 5:30.
It's only a half-hour difference.
So there was
Yeah.
really no difference. It's all just a matter of timing. And everybody goes, I was sitting next to the can. It was a little cool in the morning, and everybody's like, "You watching that thermometer?" I'm like, "Hell no, I'm warming my feet." You know, I mean, because that can, I made two adjustments in temperature to that can all day long.
Really?
Oh
I
wow.
mean, well, I had so much meat in there that I was struggling to get it up to 300. So I opened it up. And then once I got all that meat out of there, then it started to run up to 325 and I had to flip her back down. That's the only two
Hmm.
Throttle back.
adjustments I made to that can all day long. I mean, it's
Hmm.
like the easiest thing ever.
I'll be dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. People come around, when are you going to put on a one can class? And I said, yeah, go talk to the girl in the back of the U-Haul. She says, I have no class.
God damn.
You tell that joke every time somebody
I
brings
know.
up a class,
It's
don't you?
so much funny. And people
I've
laugh
never
at it
heard
every
that.
time.
Uh,
You've never
I've
really?
heard
never
that?
heard it. No,
Oh,
I've never heard
people
that.
have been
Randy,
asking me,
he
Randy.
cracks that joke all the time.
People have been asking me about having barbecue classes all the time, and I said, "Go ask my wife. She says I have no class."
Boom, boom.
Every time. Without fail.
I'll be
Without
right
Every
fail.
single time. Do you think it was okay, so let's say next time you do a one can challenge, are you gonna remember the wood? Or now do you feel like you don't need it?
Probably not. I don't know. I don't even remember. I don't. I didn't even. And afterwards, I look back and I kind of saved the notes from the first time I did the one
Mm-hmm.
can challenge, but I didn't go back and look at them.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was talking to Vince from Rhythm and Q. I think it was. And we've been friends out of Arizona for a long, long time. And we were just talking about cooking. And he said, that's the one thing that everybody that's new to the game, everybody takes all these classes. They
Mm-hmm.
take all these classes and they think there's a secret potion to rubs and sauces and mixtures and whatever. I'm telling you what, it don't make a shitting bit of difference, right? Why don't you stay home and put some meat on a cooker and learn how to cook? Learn
Yeah.
how to overcome adversity. Learn how to, when something isn't getting done, learn how to. They don't teach you in a class what I did yesterday that, hey, before chicken, go check your pork and your Cambro and make sure it's still tender where you want it to be. Otherwise, start working it. I mean, I worked 3 of those meats pretty hard yesterday. I worked pork harder than I've ever worked pork, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, till it got to the point that, hey, this feels right. And
Right.
mostly because I was at elevation, and second of all, I didn't know what the tenderness should feel like when it first came off the can. Right? I had no
Mm-hmm.
clue what it should feel. I knew on a Jambo, I know what it feel like. Here's my timeline. Here's what it feels like. Here's what it comes off. I know that. But on a
Mm-hmm.
can, I had no clue. I still don't have a clue. If I did it today, I
Right.
still wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Right? But I knew enough, not knowing that I didn't have a clue. I knew I better go double check, because you can always react to that. You can always go back and correct your mistake. There's still time. You just don't wait and
Sure.
go, oh, I undercooked. Like
Mm-hmm.
Jeff. Jeff was cooking on the Traeger, and he's like, my chicken was almost done. He goes, my chicken's at 145, and I'm like, who cares? He's like, what? And I'm going, you got 45 minutes to a fucking turn in.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's like he gets closer to turning, gets closer. I'm like, how you doing now? Uh, it's gonna get done. Like, then what are you freaking out about? It's gonna get
Yeah.
done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just make it happen. So it's
Right.
it's it's all about overcoming adversity. Even though you wouldn't think it was adversity, I had a lot of adversity yesterday.
Sounds
Trying
like
to
it.
overcome it, and I overcome it. But I sat in the chair most of the day. Easiest cook of my life. I didn't think I turned in that great of food. It wasn't very
Right.
good. I'll be the first to admit it. Sherry will be the first to admit it was probably some of the worst shit we ever turned in. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought the tenderness points were good, and that's all that really mattered. The
Mm-hmm.
ribs were a little suspect, um, but other than that, but like Jeff said, there was like 5 or 6 of us that were really hardcore professional teams, and the
Mm-hmm.
rest were regional teams, but that haven't really won a lot.
All right.
And maybe 7 or 8 that had won quite a few contests, but the rest of them had never probably won a grand. So, if you separate it out, chances are. I mean, I never won a table yesterday on a judging table. I got second on every single table.
Did you really?
Yeah, but I just soon not win a table. But I did
That's
get
so
a
interesting.
700. I won with a 703, so I got a 700 club pin. So it's kind of
Okay.
crazy.
Oh, I'll be damned.
That's so interesting. Especially like everybody's taste buds are so different.
Yeah,
In that aspect, like you thought it was terrible, but obviously it wasn't that bad. Heh,
right.
did that well.
Right. But mediocre barbecue wins.
Politically correct.
Bless you.
Oh, oh. So what else? Big 4th of July weekend coming.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is.
Big 4th
You
of
guys doing
July.
anything fun?
Do I got anything? You know what I'm going to do
Yeah.
on 4th? You know what I'm going to do on 4th of July?
What?
I'm going to fix an ice machine. I'm going to clean 2 ice machines. I'm going to load the meat in the smoker so the employees don't have to work. That's my 4th of July.
That's a
My
good
4th of July is we've got a big vending. We've got a decent sized vending event on the 4th of July. They were supposed to have fireworks, but they couldn't find anybody to shoot them, so there's no fireworks. But I think it'll still be a big turnout. And then on Friday, we've got a huge vending event between 7 and 10,000 people, and it's about the only fireworks are going to be, and it's out on the lake. It's called Rock the Dock. They have a band, and there's going to be 3 of us selling. There's us, a corn dog guy, and a Mexican truck, and so I've kind of got. If I look at my labor, I'm looking that I have more help there than I probably should, but I think we'll need it. And I'm going to load that fucking truck up with so much barbecue, we won't run out.
Are you going to have to make that all within an hour or two?
No, it's from 4 to 10.
So is it a festival too, or is it just the fireworks?
It's kind of a festival. They have the band there.
Yeah,
They
you just-
have the local radio
Okay, they do.
station.
Okay. I was going to say because
It's like
if
an
it's just
event.
a firework thing, people come in for the firework. They may grab a little something to eat and watch the firework and go home.
No, they've got
No.
the local radio stations
Yes, I do.
doing live broadcasts and everything from there, and then
Yeah.
then they're going to do the band, and then they'll do the fireworks. And on Lake Springfield, there's a lot of boats. As a lot of people live on Lake Springfield and have the boats and stuff, so a lot of them, there's a lot of boat traffic there. It's just hopefully get those people off the boats and up to try some food. So
Yeah. Huh.
may change our menu up a little bit, just the fact that for some efficiencies, but at the same time, we do a pretty good job of keeping up anyway.
Yeah.
Our biggest
Yeah.
slow point is taking orders and expediting. And so probably what I'll do is have one of the lawless girls take orders, and then I'm taking 4 people with me, and then I'll go over on the expediting window and be outside the truck and taking orders and giving them out to people, because that seems like that really gets. I did that the other night, and it sped things up and kept things straight, because people come up, and if you say pulled pork sandwich and they may ordered a brisket plate, if they think it's their turn, they're going to go ahead and take it. And so I did several times of like, okay, this is what did you order? Oh, a brisket plate. Well, this isn't it, because we were able to get the pulled pork sandwich out ahead of stuff.
Have you? We did those buzzers on our.
Yeah,
truck,
that's what I was about
Randy.
to say. Do you have
We
those
did the
toast
we did
buzzers?
the buzzers on our truck. It was like $200 on Amazon. And so when you put in the order, instead of asking a name or anything,
Right.
I'll send you that link. But
You send them a pager.
You just type in number 1. You give them the pager, and the pager you could actually, it has a thing you can put Twyford barbecue on it. You can market it, and so you put number 1 in there. You hand them the 1, and as soon as 1's ready, you just hit the button, and they come back up and they hand you the 1. Boom. They
Well,
hand you
hell,
back the pager, hand the food.
We had
A lot of
we were-
food trucks are doing that.
But how do you,
It works
well,
really
we can talk about this afterwards, but
No, I think it's interesting. I think we should talk about it now. It's educational.
The on toast, because a lot of us use toast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you put that in
Mm-hmm.
that number? Do you put in there as their name, or do you put that in
Yeah.
there
Yes,
as their
yes, yeah,
phone
and
number?
yes, as
Name.
their name, and
So you
that
got to
way
Well,
go
you don't
through.
wouldn't
have to.
you? Wouldn't you put their name in the number? I would put the
Yeah,
number so
you
that you
put
can
the
also
number
keep
in.
track
That's
of it.
all you put
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Instead
Number,
of
not
putting their
name.
name.
No,
Yes,
don't put their name. You just put the
you
number.
Right,
just put the
right,
number.
right, right. But you
Yeah.
still, when you go through toast, you got to, if it's a that type of order, you got to put their
You
phone
still
number in.
just
Put a fake phone number in
so.
there, and which is just easy to do. But just put the number in for instead of their name, and that works pretty
Yeah.
good.
When you put the tab, you just put so like where you would put the name, you would just put
One.
the number instead. Yeah. Instead
Yeah,
of putting
so like
Amy.
220
Yeah.
$220. This is a Recatess. Can you see that? I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Just put it on in case anybody else wants
And
to see it.
mm-hmm.
Recatess,
And
20 pager. You can think, and that really you don't have to
it'll
ask names.
yeah.
You just start your next order. You're just like, here's number 2, and then they bring the
Yeah.
pager back,
Yeah.
and it's got a whole charging system.
And it's one of those things if we're like you page it and they don't come, you just page it again. You just keep buzzing them.
Right. Keep
And,
buzzing.
and
Yeah.
it'll work within like 200 feet
Yeah.
of the truck.
So I go to I've been going to a brewery in Altoona for trivia nights and stuff, and
Yeah.
the food truck we were at last week, or the food truck they had last week, they were writing the orders with pen and paper, but they had the paging system, and I was able to go back
Right.
inside, keep playing the game, and then come out and grab my food when it was ready because it'd start beeping or buzzing. It is probably one of the best things you could do for your food truck, honestly. And
You
when
think
I
so?
worked,
This works.
when I helped with the food,
Right.
yeah, it eliminates
Yeah.
so many steps and confusion.
Randy,
because
this works from
the people just know.
1,300 to 1,600 feet in an open area.
Yeah,
So pretty good area.
and
And for
it eliminates
$220
the
bucks,
exact
you get
problem.
the transmitter, you get the 20 pagers, charging cable, antenna. I mean, it is truly. Plus, it speeds you up
Yeah,
because you don't have
I
to
think
ask somebody's name. How do you spell
yeah.
it? Da 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 da.
Right. Right.
And then
And you
you'll
won't
never
have
ever get
people-
the wrong order.
Yeah,
Yeah, you won't
you'll
get the
never.
wrong
Yeah, you
order.
won't. And then you won't have to get out of the truck and be like they'll just know because it'll just
And then once you
'Cause
when they
it'll be
return
theirs.
when they return the pager over at the
It shuts it off.
expediting
yep,
window,
you just put it back on the
just
put it back on the charger.
over on
Boom, it's clear.
Yeah, they can just
Mhm.
slide it over, and you put whoever's taking the order slides it back on. Boom, and they can use it right back again, and it'll stay
Use it
charged
again.
for the whole day.
Will it really?
Yeah.
Well,
I
when
thought
we
you
get
had
off
one
here,
of those,
no, we don't.
Oh,
Randy. That is
I-
probably the best investment you could make for your truck.
I
All
put
right.
that sumbitch in. You, it's like one of those things you can plug and play the day it comes in.
Yeah,
Well, we'll
It-
see how
it-
fast Amazon can get it here.
especially if you can get it before Friday. That would be a huge game changer for an event where you're expecting that many people.
Well,
Randy,
Huge.
free tomorrow delivery for me.
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm Amazon Prime also, so
And also, we
Yeah.
bought it last year, and it still works fine.
really, okay.
Yeah.
Into
And
that
it's
story.
literally dummy proof. It's dummy proof. And I know how
Are
you
you
struggle with
insinuating
technology.
something? Are you
Yeah,
insinuating
exactly.
something?
She's insinuating
I
if
am.
it's worked on our food truck, it has to be dummy proof.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not insinuating that. I mean, but based
So-
off the conversation we had before we hit record on this episode, it's dummy proof. It's easier than sending an email.
Ouch. Well, anyway, so we've got that big event. We got the pretty good size event, one of the music festival things on Thursday night, and then this Rock the Dock 4th of July festival they're having on the 5th out at the lake. We're having that on Friday night, so should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So we're
Are you
gonna
still
spend
going
a
to the
couple-
Circle K on Wednesday?
No. I found that I found out that when you have a holiday, it just doesn't really. You don't have as good a turnout the day
That
before.
makes sense.
Because
That makes
people are
sense.
busy
A lot of
doing
people
their
are
other
going
stuff.
especially especially since the holidays in the middle of the
Busy
week.
buying their hot dogs and burgers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
a lot of people are just gonna go up to like I'm going out to the lake on the Wednesday after work, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep.
But
that's
yeah,
about it.
I was gonna say if you have an event before those big ones, that would have been better to test out this new stuff. But
Well, I'll try it on that bigger one, the one on Thursday night. We'll be fine.
yeah,
Worst
baptized by
case scenario, it
fire.
doesn't work.
Huh?
Worst case scenario, it doesn't work. You quit. So we don't use
Yeah.
it all the time. If we don't have a line, we don't use it. We just take their name, whatever. If we have a line, then we use it, and it makes it easier. You can interchangeably use it or not use it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You don't have to. You don't have to use it all the time or not use it all the time. You can just use it when it's convenient for you to use it.
Okay.
But really, I think it would be a very good investment for your truck.
Oh yeah.
All right.
It's
Well,
speed you
And
up.
it would eliminate almost an entire position.
Yeah.
You almost wouldn't even need an expediter. Well, I mean, you still would, but
But it'd
Wouldn't-
keep things in order.
moving. Yeah, and moving.
That's right.
It's all about
Keep things-
flow and feng shui. Workflow.
Oh, okay.
Oh, now we're on feng shui. Last year we were on hak tui, but now we're on feng shui.
Last year.
Feng shui.
But
So with 4th of July coming up, I wonder, have you had anybody respond to any questions or anything, Emma? Hey, Emma.
Earth to Emma. Come in. Emma,
What?
Come in, Emma.
Yeah, we
my
kind of
internet
lost you.
just
You
gave
went
out.
out.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
What's up?
Had we had anybody request any ideas or things for 4th of July?
No, not necessarily. I did actually get one request, kind of. And I think if we could get good tips and tricks, I'm gonna tell him to do it for the 4th of July. But my brother, JJ, he's a beginner in the whole barbecue front. He was wondering what your best tips and tricks were for a beginner on cooking brisket, because that's been his biggest challenge. Is like he wants to try that, but he just doesn't really know the best way to start. And if I could get him good ideas, I would like to have brisket on the 4th of July. But that's the only
Brisket's-
full request.
Brisket's like super easy. I know
Mm-hmm.
everybody is brisket really starts with the piece of meat. Okay,
Mhm.
so if you think you can go buy the little 3-inch by 3-inch thing at Walmart that looks with no marbling in it, yeah, it's probably not going to be a very good piece of meat. So you got to find something that's marbled. If you can't
Okay.
find something that's marbled, then and it's always going to help to inject a brisket if you're a backyarder. So and you can find it, and it doesn't matter. It's salt and pepper, whatever. Find whatever you can from an injection. Now, almost all these professional injections are what I call professional injections, but these commercial injections are going to, what's the secret to them is phosphates. So phosphates help keep moisture in meat. That's what if you ever hear the word pumped, let's say you go to Walmart and, enhanced meat, it's phosphates that are keeping that water in meat. Okay. So phosphates are the key to anything. So whether it's Big Papa's Cattle Prod or whether it's Cosmos or whether it's Butcher's or any of those, it doesn't matter. Any of those provide phosphates. And you can mix them with whatever, beef broth, with water, whatever. But inject those in briskets and let it sit for at least 4 hours, okay? Preferably overnight. But then brisket, it's just keep it simple. Put a simple rub on it, salt, pepper, garlic. I like a lot of the SPG rubs. I like Malcolm's has a good rub. Heath Riles has a good SPG. Cosmos SPG is one of my favorites. Just a salt, pepper, garlic rub, or just grab the salt shaker, a kosher salt, restaurant ground black pepper, little granulated garlic, make your own. Doesn't matter. I like it simple on brisket. But the whole key to brisket and most barbecue is you cook in a dry environment and then you cook in a moist environment. So a dry environment creates your flavor. A moist environment creates your tenderness, right? So your dry environment is, and JJ has a pellet cooker. right?
Mhm.
So he's going to
I
cook
think
on a
so. Yeah.
pellet cooker. And if he wants to cook at 200 degrees, he can cook at 200 degrees. If he wants to cook at 300 degrees, he can cook at 300 degrees. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, one of the best briskets I ever cooked, I cooked on a pellet cooker. If you go out at actually the Snake River Farms, they ran it on TikTok. And I mean, I was out here in Boise, Idaho, and I cooked, and I couldn't believe it. First time I ever cooked, it was on a Pit Boss, I think it was. That's just a pellet cooker. It's AB, whatever.
Mhm.
But I cooked an uninjected, but it was a Snake River Farms brisket, so it was a very high quality brisket, lots of
Mhm.
marbling. But I cooked it, I think at 275 or 300 degrees, and I just wrapped it with some beef broth, and I cooked it. And I cooked it in about 5 hours by turning up the temperature, and I let it rest. But you know, cook your brisket till it gets a nice bark on it or a nice, till it's set, right? Some
Mhm.
people, if they want to, if they're temperature freaks, cook it to 165 degrees. If you're a temperature freak, wrap it
Mhm.
tight in foil, okay, or even put it in a pan that'll fit in there. But get it tight because you want to create a steamy environment. Put some beef broth in there. Put some beer in there. Put whatever flavor you want to put in there, right?
It'll take on
Um,
Mhm.
that flavor.
because you want it'll take on some of that flavor, and you want to create steam in there. So you got to make sure it's tight. Don't loosely wrap it. Make sure it's tight, and then you're going to take that brisket up. If you're doing with a lower quality meat, you probably don't want to take it as high as you can. The better quality meat, like in a competition brisket, I can cook a Snake River Farms brisket. I can cook it at 300 degrees. I can cook that baby a flat in about 4 hours, and I can push 210, 211. It'll be as juicy as can be. If I try and do that with a Walmart or a Sam's Club brisket, I'm probably going to dry it out once I get past 204, 205. The hotter you cook, the higher the finish temperature. But really, what matters is when it comes to finishing, and at the end, you can poke through that foil. Don't poke through that foil every 5 minutes. You put a hole in that foil after it's been on that smoker for about 2 hours foiled. Put a hole in it. Go back to that same hole. Okay? Use that same hole because that way you're not letting all that steam escape. Go
Sure.
back there. But what's most important is it's going to feel like butter going in. What's it feel like going out? As you pull your probe out, if there's any resistance coming out, it's not done,
Okay.
Hmm.
right? But if you're
Okay.
going in, it's going to feel like butter no matter what. Coming out is what matters.
The
So
drag.
I would say, right. So I would say if you're cooking low and slow and want to be that guy that wants to cook it overnight, your brisket's probably going to finish at 195, 198, whatever. If you want to cook it at,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm just throwing out round numbers here, but if you're going to cook at 250, your brisket's probably going to finish in the low 200s. If you're going to cook a little hotter, like 275, your brisket's probably going to finish at 205, 206. If you're going to cook at 300, it's probably going to take up to 208, 210 before it's going to get to the tenderness. But when that brisket gets done, take it out. Let it vent out. Just pop that foil just for about 2 or 3 minutes and put it in a cooler and cover it with towels and let it sit for 3, 4 hours and cover it up and just let it sit. And the longer you let it sit, the better it's going to be. I mean, if you can let that baby sit for 4, 5, 6 hours, the better off it's going to be.
And
But
it'll stay
let
all
it
right
sit.
from a.
It'll sit from a heat standpoint. The biggest thing when you put things in a cooler, and I'm not saying with ice it, I'm saying with towels, is even if you're putting a bunch of towels, is get rid of all that dead airspace. So you're
Okay.
Mhm.
insulated. But if you have dead airspace, that heat is going to eat up that dead airspace. So just just crumble up newspaper, put bath towels in there. They smell really good when you're done. Your wife will kill you, um, but put fill that cooler full of dead space.
Okay.
Fill it up
Okay.
and just put it in there. But it'll stay good. I guarantee it'll stay good for 8 hours. Now you're not going to take a little 2 pound brisket. I wouldn't say cook a 2 pound brisket. Get a brisket that's nice size. If you're
Right.
cooking
Mhm.
a flat, get a nice 6, 7 pound flat. If you're getting a whole brisket, get something that's got some size on it. Don't get
Mhm.
something that's really thin on the sides because, like anything, if it's just thin, it's going to dry out.
Sure.
Right.
Or If it's that thin, then trim off the thin pieces, and put it in the grinder and grind for hamburger. You know,
Mm-hmm.
make it into something different.
Makes sense to me.
But dry environment to gain your flavor, moist
Mm-hmm.
environment to get your tenderness.
What's your thought about the big? You see everybody wrapping briskets with the butcher paper.
Butcher paper's fine. You get a little bit of steam. You really don't have the advantage of taking on the additional flavor. It's a big Texas thing. It's going to increase your cooking time. They do it because in Texas, they like to cook their brisket the fat side up because they like to trim their fat down. They like to put that salt and pepper on that fat and create
Mm-hmm.
that real fatty bark. And if they put
Right.
it in foil, then so they like that. If you're cooking fat side up and you want that Texas fat on there, then don't put it in foil, because the foil sometimes will, if you don't let it that rub set long, it'll dissipate that bark. So if you truly want a barky brisket, forget about the foil, go to the butcher paper, forget about you're still going to get that steam, but it's going to take a lot longer to cook. Right?
Okay.
And it's just another way. There's no right, wrong, or indifferent. But I'm just saying, if you want a foolproof method of cooking a good piece of meat, then just put it in foil with a little moisture. It's, if you're going to cook, and most of the time when they're doing that, they're using prime briskets,
Right.
so they don't have to worry about injecting. They don't have to worry about adding any moisture to keep it moist because they're using a prime brisket already when they're doing it.
Okay.
So just a different method.
Now, let me ask you this. Why does the prime make a difference than just a regular choice?
Well, it's just the marbling. The marbling
Okay.
content is higher in a prime, and so the
Okay.
higher, those striations going through that meat. People sometimes tend to, especially in competition barbecue, they tend to look at brands, right?
Right.
I rep Smithfield for years, right? And they tend to look at brands. And I tell you, I've seen some amazing Smithfield meat, and I've seen some dog shit. And I've seen some amazing every brand, and I've seen some dog shit.
Right.
So don't get stuck on, and the reason, like Snake River Farms, I've seen some great briskets, and I've seen some, okay. I've never seen a really bad brisket, but I've seen some okay briskets, right?
Right.
But one of the things is they provide me the most consistent
Day in and day out.
right? Day in and day out, right?
And we
that's
love
why-
consistency.
that's why, consistency. That's the name of the game, and so that's why you stick with brands is for consistency, because they tend to have, when you talk about Snake River Farms or a Smithfield or whatever, they tend to, or Compart Duroc, they tend to have feeding programs that are all the same, so the flavors and consistency are the same, but they still have good pork and bad pork. They still have good beef and bad beef. They're not all
Right.
the same.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the cow spends a little more time at the corn feeding trough, right? Going to
Exactly.
be marbled really well. Sometimes a small one gets pushed to the back and doesn't get as much corn, right? Not going to be as
Right.
marbled as well. Not his fault. Don't blame the cow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Interesting. It is interesting. Well, we hit our hour mark, but I do have some more questions. So, do we want to make this a long episode?
Yeah, we can go a little bit longer. I got to catch a plane here after a while, but hopefully,
Well, so
hopefully, Sherry and Jeff have the U-Haul unloaded by now.
so that's why you want to go longer.
Yeah.
Got
there
it.
you go.
So I guess this was kind of like I thought this would be an interesting kind of 4th of July thing, maybe to get your guys' point of view and give people some ideas. There's a hypothetical. Let's say you guys are hosting a 4th of July party. I wanted to know what you guys would make and how, kind of like a step-by-step, kind of what your game plan would be from each of you.
Yeah,
Did you hear
Randy?
any of that?
you going or
Go ahead.
you want me to say what my menu on 4th of July is?
Yeah.
I'm cooking what Randy's cooking actually. If I'm cooking 4th of July, I'm going pork steaks. I'm slow smoking them, ahead of time. And
Mm-hmm.
then when the guests get there, I'm kind of holding them, just like I'd hold that brisket we talked about. I'm holding them when the guests get there, and when I'm ready, I'm going to hot grill them off. So I'm not waiting for we're not waiting to them to get done. So I'm going to cook them ahead of time. I'm going to put them in a
Well,
cooler, and then I'm going to sauce it, grill them ahead of time.
well, and I would agree
Right?
with you, and it'd be an easy cook because they're already done, and it also puts on a good show because when you put that sauce on there on a grill, you're going to get some smoke and some flames, and
Yep.
you know, it's going to make a good show. But you're not going to spend all day hanging out there. Put them
Right.
on the smoker, let them, as you said, smoke, and
Yep.
then I would probably put, I don't know, depending on the crowd, what I would ideally like to do is, I call it a meal on a grill, and where you'd have the
Mm-hmm.
pork steak and then take and wrap up some potatoes in aluminum foil, chop up some aluminum, slice some potatoes, then put some butter and seasoning in them and wrap them in foil and cook them on the grill
Mm-hmm.
also. And then the thing that's going to put you over the edge is cook some cabbage. Have cooked cabbage. Take a head of cabbage, quarter it up, put butter, seasoning, some bacon pieces in there on it, and then wrap it in foil and cook that on there. So you're not heating up the kitchen or anything. You've got everything. You could cook that on a smoker even too. But I call it a meal on a grill. So you've got your potatoes, you got your cabbage, you got your protein, the whole 10 yards.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of on the health kick, so I'm going a little healthier than the taters. Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna take Brussels sprouts. I'm gonna cut them in half, and
There you
I'm going
go.
to take broccoli and carrot. I'm going to take broccoli and carrots and cauliflower, and I'm going to mix them with maple syrup and sriracha, a little black pepper. I'm
Ooh.
going to drizzle them ahead of time and let them marinate overnight in a Ziploc bag, and I'm going to dump
Mm-hmm.
them in a foil pan. I'm going to roast them on the grill
Oh,
until they're
nice.
tender, and then I'm going to actually peel off sweet potatoes, and because grilled sweet potatoes are my favorite, and I'm
Okay.
going to
Yeah.
cut them on. I'm going to cut them on the bias. I'm going to season them with sweet money because sweet money is made for sweet potatoes. I'm going
Right.
to spray each one of them with Pam. I'm going to grill them. I'm going to put sweet money. I'm going to put on some grill grates. I'm going to put a nice grill mark on each one. Throw them in a foil pack with no butter, no nothing, and put them on the edge of the grill while I'm grilling them pork steaks and bring them up to 204, 205 degrees till they're tender
Right.
internal. Like, what kind of guy would measure the internal temperature of sweet potatoes? Yeah, me. Because if you get them overdone, sure, he has a fit and they become mashed potatoes. But I'll do that and little hot dogs for the kids on the side of the grill. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that vegetable with the maple syrup and the sriracha and
Yeah,
black
that
pepper
sounds
That sounds good.
delicious.
it is like killer good.
Well, the
Hmm.
nice thing about the
What else would that be
potato,
good on?
Anything,
Like
any vegetable you want
anything?
to put it on. You know, another thing I did too, Randy. This and we've been into big peppers and onions, and we talked a little bit about Blackstone. So
right?
Sherry and I, we've been taking. Maybe we talked about this last week. So I'm big into
Mm-hmm.
cutting peppers, red peppers and yellow pepper, not green, because I'm not a green pepper fan, but yellow, red, orange peppers, cutting them into
Right.
inch like big inch squares, and taking a nice sweet onion and doing the same, cutting it into big inch. Oh, there goes Southwest.
That's over me.
Yeah, I know.
Oh. Have you guys just? I
Cutting
mean,
in,
I've always lived by an airport.
cutting, and put them on the Blackstone.
Right.
Just spraying some spray Pam on them, putting maybe a little jalapeno salt or something on them. And then we've been taking these skinless brats, and you're supposed to cook them frozen, but I've been thawing them out and then cutting them up into like 10 little pieces,
Uh
and then
huh.
putting them on that flat top, and then mixing that all together,
Ooh, I bet you
and
that is
then
good.
and putting that in a low carb tortilla. Oh my God, that is
Ooh,
just like
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think you brought that up.
that is just like heaven. I mean, I am like
Hey,
addicted to those things.
one thing I've always told people about that if they want to have a successful Fourth of July party, remember if you have
Mm-hmm.
anything that's kind of got mayonnaise in it or anything like that, like potato salad, make you an ice bath and put it on there. Don't let it just sit out
Yep,
on the
yep.
Yeah.
table because you don't want to get a
Oh
bunch of
yeah.
people sick. And just get an oversized bowl and put some ice in it and set your bowl of your potato salad or whatever. If you're doing a mayonnaise-based coleslaw, put that in there and can help
Yeah, and if you
eliminate
made
some
two
problems.
gallons of it for the family picnic, maybe cut it down into little 1/4 or 2/4 and keep the
Right.
rest in the damn cooler and just replenish it as it gets done so it's not sitting out there all damn day.
Yeah, you don't have
Because
the
that
whole
way,
lot
if one
out
gets
there.
down, it's been sitting out there for an hour, you can throw it away and put another one in.
Yeah, good idea.
Or
Good
you
idea.
can take it out, or you can take
Right.
it out and replenish it with another one. Put the other one in the cooler. You know, the golden rule is you got 4 hours between 40 and 140. So anytime you're outside that danger range, don't let that food sit out. Food
Yeah.
safety is
Mhm.
most important.
That would never happen at the Derflinger household. Let me tell you.
I know.
Amanda
a
is
good thing.
big into food safety.
Yeah, Amanda's got her last weekend of freedom before her life
I
goes
know.
to hell again.
Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. She's in Boston right now. She gets back to Tuesday and then immediately has to entertain all of her children and their significant others for only a couple of us will be there for a couple of days, but some of them will be there for the entire weekend. And I hope she loves this one. All is done.
Tell her to send me a message someday when she's going to start.
Doesn't she start the week after that?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm assuming
I think
so, but I don't know. If she needs a
Maybe
break
one
from her
day.
vacations, then maybe let me know. Yeah.
She probably misses working. That's not true. Maybe. I doubt it though. Yeah. Sounds like they've been having a good time. But anyway, that was really, I guess, all I had.
Okay.
Was I just wanted to know what you guys would do. Give them some tips. Randy, you got anything else?
Nope, not a thing.
Darren?
Nope.
About
Oh,
you?
one thing I have: don't let
I'm,
your sparkler get wet. With 4th of July, don't let your sparkler
get wet, and watch out. Them some bitches are hot. Tell
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
don't touch the end.
Also,
I
yeah.
hate fireworks.
Be careful. Be careful around fireworks.
Hate those bastards.
I hope nobody loses a finger in the next couple of days.
Not gonna be me.
Not gonna be
Nope.
me either. Yeah, and if you want more tips and tricks on how to grill like burgers and stuff, listen to last week's episode 62. Darren had some good tips in there for burgers and bratwursts and stuff like that. So yeah, and happy 4th of July, guys.
All righty. Is that it?
And, yeah. Well, follow us on social media if you haven't. At Cue the Mic Pod on everything. At Cue the Mic Podcast on YouTube. And that is it. Randy?
Boom. Done. Out of here. Finished.
Out, boom, from Boise.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Adios.